Chillicothe, Ohio. Phil was born here, raised here, has pretty much lived his whole life here. He still lives here. To him, this area is home. These roads are his home roads. And now, it's time to tear that shit up. Okay, the Southern Ohio Forest Rally 2026. This is an event which has not been kind to us, to say the least, in many different ways. As the title of the video might suggest, is this our third strike? Or is the third time the charm? If you follow our social media, you know the answer, but that's kind of cheating, isn't it? It was a big event for the Argonaut team. They were supporting 5 cars, us obviously, but Sean's Clio, a pair of Peugeot 208s, and the Black Fiesta. And Melee Media brought out their crazy 800 frames per second camera. It is so beautiful that I couldn't bring myself to downsize it to 1080p and decided to edit this entire video in 4K. And honestly, I really don't have a good place to kind of put it in the middle. I don't think, I don't know, maybe I do. Maybe I'll find it after I've said this and you'll see it in the middle of the video. But I'm going to put some here. If you thought it was slow to watch us on a good day, here's the agony of 1/27th speed. For extra fun, SOFR is the latest event to stop providing Jembas even at an extra charge. We had to write all of our own notes, and it is a good thing we took the Oz Rally class from the Gelsaminos. We had written a couple of stages last year, so we did get to save some time there. We just had to do the second pass rather than the first, confirm that all of our notes were good. Having said that, at some point we did somehow just randomly miss a couple of turns. I don't know if I just didn't open my mouth. I don't know if Phil didn't hear him. I don't know if we just... I don't know. Something happened. We had to go back later and watch the video and figure it out. So it was actually a really good thing that we ended up having to do having the video to be able to go back and do that. Somehow, that didn't actually hurt us when we got to drive it, but it did waste a little bit of time on Recce Day. Once again, I mounted the camera to the car for Recce, or the second pass anyway, and forgot to turn off the camera, so I have, I don't know, 15-20 minutes of us sitting at a gas station. Random boring footage, imagine that. One thing we did discover on Recce is that it's not uncommon for a stage to have a virtual chicane, and I think our first experience with one, I don't know, is that actually LSPR? But my favorite experience with one was LSPR. And, generally these are meant to slow you down as you head into a curve, but coming down through this particular stage, we discovered that virtual chicanes are not always for speed. Sometimes it's just because the road is so rough.
The market is rough?
Probably. So with Recce completed, we headed to testing. Our Sean Donnelly, had hired Sean Johnston, the Irish rally racer, to coach him and also make a couple of setup changes to some of the cars. He actually came up with a setup for our springs that was significantly stiffer in front, so we did a lot less pitching every time we braked, and that seemed to actually help. I felt very confident with that, although I don't know that it would necessarily end up showing in our times. Another thing that we did that was different was that I had bought a small, cheap OBD2 reader that Bluetoothed to my phone in the hopes that we would be able to get a little bit of car data transmitted to the phone, and then the little telemetry overlay that we have in certain shots would maybe be able to do things like RPMs and throttle speed. I neglected to actually connect it to the phone, unfortunately, so you can imagine my surprise when I opened the first file, and the entire time the throttle is just listed at 10.6, 10.6, 10.6. I only realized this after I had created the scale. This one goes to 11. And that stage also showed that the RPM constantly at 740, which I suppose is our idle speed, but I can assure you we were going faster than idle. We're slow, but not that slow. Connection was very intermittent. It was cool when it worked, and not so cool when it didn't work, and it also seems to interfere with the Bluetooth heart rate monitor, so apparently I'm going to be able to get car data or my data, and not both. I don't know if that's actually an issue with those, with the software, with the phone. We'll figure something out. Somewhat after testing, we discovered that the camera exposure settings were way too dark. Looks like we were driving around at dusk or twilight when you look at the external cabin, and the internal cabin was so dark that we got essentially no usable footage, which is unfortunate because it would have been fun to have footage of. We took Chris Kessinger, one of our sponsors of Citizens First Fire Training, took him for a ride. It's definitely a different experience to drive these roads without a co-driver because you have to kind of do it by sight, and you can't be nearly as fast if you're not entirely certain what's over the next crest. The only good thing about the testing stage is that I'd already done it a couple times by the time we let Chris in the car, so it wasn't an entirely slow ride. The fun thing is he is both a veteran and a firefighter, and these are people who don't impress easily, so when he said it was, quote, fucking cool, unquote, I figure that's a rave review. As usual, SOFR starts Thursday night with a park expose at the Chillicothe High School. And as usual, it is June in southern Ohio, and it's the hottest part of the day, and the sun is beating down, and there is no shade there, so we were basically melting. I love SOFR as an event, but that is one of the roughest park exposés that we have. It's one of the few times I figure the fire truck is right there, so it's one of the few times that I don't bother wearing the fireproof underwear because it's just so hot. And apparently one of the things that it was too hot for was the car's starter. I didn't have the camera running at this time, but we got into the car, switched on all the things, hit the start button, it went click, did not start, and started first smoking under the hood, and then started smoking from the battery cables under my butt. You can imagine how quickly I got out of the car when the car started smoking, and I immediately second-guessed my decision to not wear the fireproof undies, but, it was fine. The Argonaut crew came over and yanked the battery cable off the terminal to keep it from catching the rest of the way on fire. We decided it was probably safe to drive if we could get it started, so everybody got behind and pushed, and we bump-started the car. Great. So my goal was simply to not turn off the car and not stall it, which was exciting because instead of going through the construction zone the way we would normally go through town, they took us up along the flood wall, and there was a nice place where I had to choose between feathering the throttle or bashing the skid plate, and I chose to bash the skid plate. The one thing about that was pretty cool was that we did spend some time waiting on top of the flood wall, which meant we had the unique opportunity to actually spectate a stage we were about to run. We didn't set any records on the Super Special, but we were a couple seconds faster than last year, so. I'll take any sort of improvement.
Double caution, stay mid over jump. 150 over finish.
We woke up the next morning at Portsmouth with a brand new starter, straight out of the box. Crew was busy working on the black Fiesta, which had blown a brake line, and the subsequent leak of brake fluid had caused both the master and slave cylinder of the transmission to fail because of the shared reservoir. And they said, hey, you know what? We put a new battery in here and maybe didn't charge it up enough, so they fired up the car, and it kind of started sluggishly, and Phil and I shared a glance like, that doesn't sound good. And sure as shit, wouldn't you know, we get into the car, try to fire up the starter, and it goes click. Bad starter out of the box. It's already looking like This is an event that has not been kind to us ever, and it's already looking that we are going to continue that trend. However, once again, the crew got in front of us, pushed us out of the space, got behind us, pushed us forward, and bump started us. So, once again, I had the mission of not stalling, this time on stage. Real stages, gravel stages, long stages.
Go.
And of course, because we had had trouble getting the thing started, we ended up not leaving in our usually assigned position. We ended up at the very back of the pack, which means there would be no competitors to give us a bump, because Sweep isn't allowed to touch us. The first stage of the day
100.
started out rough for everybody. It was taking people out left and right.
Careful around this. 5 plus right. Six left.
Most of the cars looked intact, like they just had a mechanical problem, but
long opens.
not all of them. Not all of them. Given how we'd started our day, it was
70.
satisfying just to survive a stage
Six
where
right down.
5 other teams are dropping by the wayside. Every time you drive past that, it's like, oof, glad I'm not them.
6 plus left, tightens over crest. Caution, 30, crest into 3 plus right down.
And one of the dangers here at SOFR, and it took out a number of people, are these old Works Progress Agency area culverts. They're built in the 30s as part of the Depression-era WPA. They're big, they are concrete, they are over-engineered, they are very solid, and they seem like they're maybe not quite in every ditch, but the vast majority of them. At one point, we did manage to end up riding a ditch, but we managed to escape without hitting a culvert, which
30, 5
was a
plus
lucky
right
break for
down
us.
long.
Holy shit.
30, 5 minus left.
This brought us to stage 6. Pound the alarm south, the first running. This is the final stage of the leg. At this point, things are going well, and there's a 45-minute service after that, so we're hopeful that maybe at that point we can get a new starter. All we have to do, not stall it. At one point, I apparently misheard or just wasn't listening to Phil, and made a left where we were supposed to make a right, and managed to break the car before I hurt anything, and managed to turn around.
6 plus left.
I bounced off the rock wall to make sure I had enough room,
100.
but I managed to complete the 3-point turn without stalling the car. Whew. Good thing too, because like I said, there's no competitor to push us. Unfortunately, my luck didn't end. It came down into a right-hander, and there was a soft spot that we found. Just maybe didn't brake quite enough. Did a little bit of a spin, slid sideways into the bridge, and the tires at the end, which were thankfully soft, and the first time we've ever seen those at SOFR, kind of bounced us into the bridge.
See if it'll start.
No. Oh, shit.
In fact, actually, I took pictures because it very much looked like I had posed the car there. Oh, look, we're going to have a photo opportunity. Yeah, not so much. So Phil and I weren't strong enough to get the car moving by ourselves, so we waited for rescue, and Sweep showed up about 10 or 11 minutes later, and they're like, hey, we're not allowed to touch your car, that's the rules. And we're like, well, that's fine, but we're in your way. So, I mean, you can drag us or push us, but, like, yeah, you have to get by us, you're Sweep. So, they got out, figured it was easier to push us than to tie up to the bumper. They never passed us. And maybe my foot slipped off the clutch and the car restarted. I'm okay with that. So at that point, we got back into the car, got our safety gear on, and had a nice, sedate drive back down the rest of the stage to the finish, and pulled into service where the team had... Actually, it was the old starter for us. I think we were going to reuse that. Once the starter was replaced, it worked for the rest of the event, didn't give us any more trouble. And the second leg of the day was basically unremarkable. Not setting any blistering times. We were actually mostly within a couple seconds of our times on the earlier leg. So not losing, not gaining, just being really consistent. And hopefully we can learn from that and get faster. Didn't miss any turns this time, recovered a tiny off, and even made it through that same bridge that we didn't make it through the first time. Although when we came through the bridge the second time, it did look like somebody else had dinged it on the other side. Kind of glad to not be the only one for that one. Day 3 of SOFR is always Park Expose and MacArthur. I hardly ever take video of these places at Park Expose, and I have no idea why, because it would be good B-roll for this very moment. There's no shade in MacArthur either. Well, there's a little shade in some places at MacArthur, but at least it's early enough in the day that you're not in the worst of the heat. It had been dry enough long enough that they actually gave us a dust minute, so they started us at 2-minute intervals instead of 1, but there were still times when I would still see dust hanging in the air. The second stage was Bolster Hollow, at this point stage 12. Another rough stage. We lost 4 more cars to various and sundry problems, including 2 of our teammates, unfortunately, and they actually went off the road practically within earshot of each other. Both of them rolled and did some pretty impressive damage to the cars, but hopefully they'll be back ready for the next event.
33 minus left, 50, 1 right. Oh, I was showing.
Oh, that sucks.
50, crest, 30.
We, on the other hand, managed to finish the morning leg.
5 minus right.
We made it out in the afternoon after service. The first couple of stages were pretty safe. We managed to do Church of the Raccoons and Courtney's Web without too much drama there. Managed to not go off on Courtney's Web in the same place that I went off the first running. On the second running of Irish Ridge, we managed to have a little scare and went up the hill. I suppose that's the correct way to go, because then it kind of tends to pull you back into the road as opposed to the previous hill that we got onto, which was down the hill and tends to pull you off the road. Which brings us to the final stage, the second running of Wheel Tracked South. Would we be able to pull it off? Things were looking good, everything was under control. As much as I was tempted to just kind of pussyfoot it around, I was determined to at least match my pace from the morning. Not about to just wimp out just to say we finished it. There's no honor in that. We should at least try to go somewhat fast. And it started to catch us out. Just hit a patch of road where we managed to put the rear tires off the road and started sliding sideways. At this point, I'm not so convinced that I was looking up the road as looking down the hill, looking through the weeds, waiting for a tree stump, and kind of bracing for impact. However, there was no tree stump, there was no rock, there was no anything. And we simply came to a graceful, gentle halt. Okay. It seemed to feel like, at the time, it seemed to take forever for me to make the decision that we had stopped and I could put the car in first gear and drive. If you watch the video, it's really not all that slow. But we got back on the road and managed to finish the rally. So SOFR didn't get us a third time. We managed to make the third time the charm, and this is 2 for 2 this year. And we'll find out shortly whether we get to go 3 for 3 at STPR. Depending on how quickly I edit this, we will either be there next week, or maybe we were there last week. So, were we the fastest? No. Were we the slowest? Also no. Did we mow some weeds along the way? You betcha. Overall, 68 entries, 49 finishers. We were 39th overall, 14 out of 23 regionals, and 7 of 9 in our class. Not the fastest, not the slowest, but at least it was a finish. We are really looking ahead to more of those. See you out there. We didn't set any records on the Yoktangi Street. Yoktangi?